Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I read the text from Mother Gita. I certainly will send it to you, Hare Krishna. So, welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam classes from Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 23. And so, without further ado, we'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Privajikacharya Astotara Satashishi Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Privajikacharya Astotara Satashishi Maharaj Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ स्वामी कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय गंगा मई की जय जमुना मई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय सामवेद भक्त बिंद की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि 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 बोल all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Namo Vishnu Krishna Krishna Hare Srimati Bhakti Swami Namaste Krishna Vinaya Prabhupada Namaste Gauri Shakti Bhakti Narayana Namaskritya Naronchevam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Ujirayat Nasya Prayesva Bhatresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Uttamastoke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart, and Text 23. Yogeshwaranam gatim ahuranta Bahistrilokya pavanantaratmanam Nakama bhistam gati apnuvanti Vidyatapo yoga samadhi bhajam Yogeshwaranam gatim ahuranta Bahistrilokya pavanantaratmanam Nakarma bhisgat tam gatim apnuvanti Vidyata yoga samadhi bhajam Yogeshwaranam gatim ahuranta Bahistrilokya pavanantaratmanam Nakama bhistam gatim apnuvanti Vidyata yoga samadhi bhajam. Hare Krishna. Anyone who would like to chant, please unmute yourself and do so. Hare Krishna.
योगेश्वराणां गतिमाहुरन्तर् बहिस्त्रिलोकयः पवनान्तरात्मनां न कर्मभिस्तां गतिमाप्नुवन्ति विद्यातपो योगसमाधिभाजाम्.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Anyone else like to chant?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
योगेश्वराणां गतिमाहुरन्तं बहिस्त्रिलोके पवनान्तरात्मनां न कर्मभिस्तां गतिमाप्नुवन्ति विद्या तपो योगसमाधिभाजम्. हरे कृष्ण.
Anyone else? Okay. So we'll do word for word now. Yoga Ishwaranam of the great saints and devotees. Gatim, destination. Ahu, it is said. Anta, within. Bahi, without. Trilokya, of the three planetary systems. Pavana Anta, within the air. Atmanam, of the subtle body. Na, never. Karmavi, by fruitive activities. Tam, that. Gatim, speed. Apnuvanti, achieve. Vidya, devotional service. Tapa, austerities. Yoga, mystic power. Samadhi, knowledge. Bhajam, of those who entertain. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The Transcendentalists are concerned with the spiritual body. As such, by the strength of their devotional service, austerities, mystic power, and transcendental knowledge, their movements are unrestricted within and beyond the material world. The fruitive workers or the gross materialists can never move in such an unrestricted manner. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The material scientists' endeavor to reach other planets by mechanical vehicles is only a futile attempt. One can, however, reach heavenly planets by virtuous activities, but one can never expect to go beyond Swaga or Janaloka by such mechanical or materialistic activities, either gross or subtle. The transcendentalists who have nothing to do with the gross material body can move anywhere. The transcendentalists who have nothing to do with the gross material body can move anywhere within or beyond the material worlds. Within the material worlds, they can move in the planetary systems of the Maha, Janas, Tapas, and Satyaloka, and beyond the material worlds, they can move in the Vaikunthas as unrestricted spacemen. Narada Muni is one of the examples of such spacemen, and Durvas Muni is one of such mystics. By the strength of devotional service, austerities, mystic, mystic powers, and transcendental knowledge, everyone can move like Narada Muni or Durvas Muni. It is said that the Rasmuni travels through the entire of material space and part of spiritual space within 1 year only. The speed of the transcendentalists can never be attained by the gross or subtle materialist. Om Gnati Mirandasya Gyana Gana Shalakaya Chakshum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirveshesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Okay. So the English translation again. The transcendentalists are concerned with the spiritual body. As such, by the strength of their devotional service, austerities, mystic power, and transcendental knowledge, their movements are unrestricted within and beyond the material worlds. The fruitive workers or the gross materialists can never move in such an unrestricted manner. So again, one more thing revealed by Shukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Pariksit, definitely since it's written, it also is for our benefit. So now we're looking at, in this particular case, the qualities of a transcendentalist and the abilities of a transcendentalist. That sums up this translation. Their mentality the mentality of the transcendentalist is based on being the spiritual body and not the material body. The material body, even if they have it, is not as of great concern to them as food for the soul. They live their lives that way. And other things that come is by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, giving other abilities. Sometimes the abilities, the Prabhupada describes them as byproducts, things that happen. Why? Because the important thing is to be engaged in devotional service. And when one is engaged in devotional service, other activities become possible to do. And this is what is being described here. The movements of these transcendentalists, they are unrestricted in the material world or spiritual world. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, giving especially Narada Muni as one of the examples of a transcendentalist. We'll get to that later. Then he says the fruity workers or the gross materialists, they can never move in such an unrestricted manner. So the fruity workers, we can look at those who are scientists. Their aim is to get knowledge and power, trying to lord it over material nature. But whatever they achieve is extremely restricted. They make so many assumptions about even this one material universe that we're in. And even when this one planet, so many assumptions have been made about how things are. Why do they make assumptions? Well, when somebody can find out a fact, they won't assume anything. If it's possible for them to attain facts, they will go for facts. But because they are very limited, these scientists are very limited, they start with an assumption and try to prove the validity of the assumption. This is how they're going about research. I've been there, so I know what I'm talking about. And if they're able to prove the assumption, well, that's the greatest day in their lives. Then they write about it in the articles, in the journals. And if they're not able to prove it, then it's just sitting there until somebody comes up with something else and disproves it. So that's fruity workers. They are very restricted. But as Papa translates here, Shukadeva Goswami is describing that these transcendentalists who are concerned about what Krishna wants us to be concerned about, his internal energy, spirituality. Hmm? So it's telling us in many ways that we should also concentrate on what it takes to satisfy Krishna's senses, devotional service, and it is all spiritual. Even when we have these material things that we use, when we offer, it is spiritualized. We may not have the kinds of eyes and the kinds of abilities to see the spiritualization, but it is spiritualized, mm, because this is from authorities. When you don't know things, you accept the authorities. Srila Prabhupada says that. Shabda Prama. That is the authoritative statements. And so, yes, one of them is like this particular translation here. By the strength of the devotional service, austerities, mystic power, and transcendental knowledge of these transcendentalists, their movements are unrestricted. Of course, we hear about them, we're not going with them, so we don't see the proof, but we're not at the point to be able to see that kind of proof. It's like Srila Prabhupada gave an example that helps us to believe these statements. He says, when somebody is born from the mother, the baby and the mother connect, but who is the father? The baby does not know. The baby does not know the father. The baby can connect to the mother pretty easily. Right after birth, they might want, this time I say they might, usually what happens is they will get food from the breast of the mother because nature, Krishna, has arranged it that when a child gets born, at the same time, milk becomes available in the breast of the child's mother. And that's how the child gets fed. Now, first of all, I just kind of said sometimes because now science has put formulas and whatever else, and even for newborn babies, that they try to feed the babies outside of breast milk. It's the only reason I mentioned it like that. But the natural thing is that breast milk. So the child connects to the mother that way. That's where I have to go. That's how I get fed. And then later on, the father comes in the picture. How? How does the child know? The child has no way of knowing. But as the Papa explains, when the mother says to the child, this is your father, then the child has to accept it. This is your father. So the child accepts it. So this is how the authority explains. So in this same way, the authorities are explaining to us devotional service, which we are practicing, austerities, which for us is obeying the regulated principles, getting up early in the morning and chanting the holy name. Mystic power that comes with this type of activity involving ourselves in devotional service. And if it doesn't come, it's not a big deal, not for us. We're not trying to be mystics. We're trying to go back to Godhead. And we don't need to master mystic power in order to go back to Godhead. We just need to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna doesn't say acquire mystic powers, but it does come for those who practice it. And sometimes some transcendentalists simply get it. Sometimes some of them get it by the planet they're born in. For example, in Brahmaloka, they don't have to go through mystic power classes. They are born, it's part of them. It's part of them. All 8 mystic cities, they have it. The higher planets. So we are concerned with transcendental knowledge, especially the application of it. So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that a materialistic endeavor to reach planets by mechanical vehicles is only a futile attempt. And we know that there have been situations where people have talked about this country using science to try to go to the moon. There have been many discussions about that. And it's interesting how some people believe and some people don't quite believe. Srila Prabhupada explained that these planets are obtained by going there with permission or led there. You just don't go and do whatever you want. No, you don't take a machine and say, I'm going to go. But in the Bible, there have been situations like that. There are kings that came up with ways in which to get to heaven. And they wanted to construct a staircase from earth to heaven. Hmm? And they tried a staircase. Now, walking that kind of staircase, I wouldn't even put my mind to try to figure out how that can be done. Do we have the strength to do it? But at the time, they tried it, and they got nowhere. They got nowhere. The Lord, it says in the Bible how the Lord changed their minds about it. They couldn't understand each other, therefore they could not communicate. The Lord just shut up that kind of. They couldn't have done it, but the Lord helped them early enough so that they would not waste their energies that way. For being a transcendentalist, it's possible to do that. So it is a futile attempt. The moon was a futile attempt. We've never heard one time they went to the moon that they've ever tried to go again. If it's possible to do, we'll do it several times and do even go further than that. So we'll just leave that here. Whatever people believe. But say Prabhupada said they couldn't possibly have gone to these planets that they were thinking of. Moon is a heavenly planet. Anyway, by virtuous activities, we get promoted. Just like in devotee, serving Krishna and thinking about Krishna at the time of death, we'll be promoted there. Some devotees, pure devotees in the spiritual world, come to act or play the roles of demons and fight Krishna when Krishna just wants to sport in the material world. They will come to the material world and do that. And then after they get killed or Krishna wins, but most of the time they get killed because when they get killed, then the soul will come out of that physical body. And where does the soul go? Back to the spiritual world. Back to the spiritual world. The Nukasura, the donkey demon and his friends that were in the Taliban forest. The Nukasura is one example. It says in the Garbha Samhita, he got killed in the very end by Balaram. There's a reason for that. But the point is, after the Inkasura, the donkey, got killed, it says in the Garbha Samhita that there was an 8-mile long chariot. And there were quite a few, well, I should say quite a few, quite a number of them, of spiritual world entities who came. And it was a very jubilant situation. This is after he died now. Yenikasura died. And this particular chariot came not from any Vaikuntha planet, but specifically from Goloka Vrindavan. And they took Dhenukasura, and Dhenukasura was sent back to Goloka Vrindavan. Therefore, obviously, there is a connection between Dhenukasura and the spiritual world, particularly Goloka Vrindavan. So Garbha Samhita, it's a whole story behind it. It's very, very nice how the whole fight that took place and the details of it. In fact, Govardhan Hill got involved in it, not just as location, but Govardhan had, himself got involved in it. And that part, since I'm talking about, I'll just tell you a little bit of it. So in that fight, Yenukasura really fought a very, 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 very valiant type fight. He really wanted to win. You can't beat Krishna. And he said he can't beat Balaram. It got to a point in the middle of the fight that Krishna tossed, for lack of a better word, Dhenukasura just up in the air and towards Govardhan Hill, and he landed where Govardhan Hill was. And Dhenukasura uprooted Govardhan Hill. We've heard Krishna do that. Dhenukasura did that and threw it at Krishna, intending to hurt Krishna. But Krishna caught Govardhan Hill and threw it back at Denikosura. Denikosura also was able to catch Govardhan Hill and threw it back at Krishna. And Krishna called Govardhan Hill, and this time Krishna tossed Govardhan Hill, but right back to where Govardhan Hill was at. So then he actually, took Govardhan Hill out of the fight. Denikasura didn't go after Govardhan Hill either to continue the fight. So all of these details were there in Gaga Samhita. And then finally, Balaram killed him because he got whirled around and hit on the ground. He broke bones. But Krishna had promised he would not kill. Denikasura was from a line that Krishna had already promised he won't kill anybody in that line anymore. So that's why Balaram had to actually finish the job and actually take his life. But then Denikasura went back to the spiritual world. Anyway, to come back to this. So transcendentalists can travel different places, material as well as the spiritual world. And in the case of Narada Muni, Krishna actually uses Narada Muni quite a bit. Sometimes he even goes to demons, like Kansa. He went to Kansa with a message from Krishna. Narada Muni went so many places. Mrigai the hunter, who was half killing animals, make them suffer before they die. Narada Muni stopped him. So and then part of that particular pastime also, there was that mystic power that Narada Muni used to show Mrigai the hunter those animals that were dead, and they were just waiting. Mrigai the hunter got the impression that they were waiting for his death so they can get him back. And that's how he got fearful and asked Narada Muni how to get out of that. And Narada Muni says, so, don't use your weapon anymore to kill him. Don't kill any more animals. And Mrigai the hunter says, but this is how I support myself. How am I going to live without doing this? Narada Muni said, don't worry. You'll be taken care of. And so when he changed and became a sadhu, a saint, then the people in the nearby village heard that Mrigai the hunter had now become this. So they knew what he was doing at first. Not only was he killing animals, but half killing them and making them suffer. He actually said that his father taught him to do like that. There still is no excuse, though. It really isn't any excuse. He liked to see those animals suffer first. But he changed his mind. Narada Muni's influence. And now, how to support himself? The people in the village just brought so much food stuff that he got supported easily. He didn't have to strain himself, but if you listen to a transcendentalist, this is what happens. That's why our transcendentalist, Srila Prabhupada, is such an important personality in our lives. And he's left us, even as he's left, physically he's left, but he said, I'll never die. I will always be here in my books. And here, we're hearing again. So, transcendentalists don't have much to do with the gross material body. If it's necessary, it's necessary to keep it, then they just keep it in terms of making it go on. But their concentration is in spirituality, and they move anywhere within the material world and even the spiritual world. That's what Papa says. And he concentrated on the higher planets. Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. So actually on this earth, which is Bhuloka, higher than that is Bhuvaloka. And from Bhuvaloka, we go to Swagaloka, the heavenly planet. That's where Indra is. And he has his own capital called Amaravati and so on. It's all described in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And then higher than that, Swanloka is the Mahaloka. And Janaloka, Brigumuni is the Mahaloka. And he lives a good 4,300,000,000 years, which is 12 hours of Lord Brahma's time. That's his lifetime, Muni. And some people in Brigu's school. There's one particular devotee that was my god sister. He was in Detroit at the time. I was in Maryland, Washington D.C. area. She came over there. She's one of the students of in the school for Brigu and Brigu Muni. That school, they learn from teachings from Brigu Muni, and what they get from it is being able to predict or talk about a person's future, and even the past. They can talk about that. So this particular Mataji had gone to that school, had mastered how to, and she was, as my spiritual master, Bhakti Thera Maharaj said, in some ways she was a mystic herself. But she had gone to that particular school, she had mastered this, and she was talking about the Buddhist future. So I got some information about my past and also not so much future, but the past and what had happened to me in my previous life and so on. She told me these things. So their abilities are there in these higher planets. Mahaloka, Janaloka. So from Swagaloka, you go higher to Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. And the higher you go, the more ability that those born there have those mystic, those cities. But again, we're talking about the material world. And Srila Prabhupada has already said, from Brahmaloka to Pataloka, they are all places of suffering, anxieties are there. Indra himself has admitted, he was talking to Narada Muni, this is also in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. He was talking to Narada Muni and he was talking about some of the difficulties in the heavenly planets. One, that there is rivalry, there is enmity. They have so much material things, but there's rivalry there. So there's competition. And the competition with not really the great intention of just sporting, but competition in terms of who's better than who. And then also, rivalry, enmity sometimes there. Going after other people's spouses and so on. Those things happen there. And then Indra also talked about sometimes they are kicked out of their kingdoms, the heavenly kingdoms, by the daityas. They're demons. They're just as powerful as the demigods. So if they do something that is wrong, then the daityas can overtake them, kick them out. And Indra even described where sometimes they come to the earth. They may disguise themselves as sannyasis, but they're actually demigods who have been displaced from the heavenly planets, their place. There was one time that says when Bali Maharaj kicked them out of the heavenly planets, the Soma, the sun god, was replaced by a demon. His position was replaced by a demon. Indra's capital, he lost it. The sun god, Vivashwan or Surya, he was displaced. Somebody else came there. So basically, the material world is no place. Even this, we're talking about the higher planets now. There's no place to even be thinking about going to. Yet we know that some of our religionists, that's what they talk about. I'm going to heaven, I'm going to heaven, I'm going to heaven. Yeah, there is extended lifetime, as we talked about, Bhrigu Muni living 4,300,000,000 years. Even in Satyaloka, Brahmaloka. Now, the average lifetime, as is reported in this same canto, second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, of the residents there, 15,480,000,000,000 years. So that's why sometimes they call them practically deathless. The time is very long. But of course, our lunar way of looking at time is very, very long. Almost 15 and a half trillion years, the average person. Lord Brahma himself lives well over 100 trillion years, 115 trillion years, 400 billion years. So they live a long time and they have extended sense gratification. And then they also have this mystic cities, making themselves light as a feather, very heavy. They can, be atomic in size. They can take things from other planets. But the thing is, after all of this, and it has been described by Indra, after all of this, where is total peace? The lack of total peace because there's envy there. That's always an issue. Always an issue in the material world. So for us, we are fortunate enough to be directed by Srila Prabhupada, get involved seriously in devotional service. Hear about Krishna, chant Krishna's name, Hare Krishna mantra, purify the body. This thought one purifies the mind, what we talked about, chanting the holy name. Purify the whole body by Krishna Prasadam. And then have fun. Kirtan, in the assembly of devotees. Lord Chaitanya was doing that every day in Navadvip. He and his associates would go around and chant the holy name. And so with that, plenty, because the holy name just wakes up the heart where the soul is and gives such wonderful enjoyment. As I'm talking about, I'm thinking about tomorrow here in the Harrisburg area, we have the Rath Yatra. We're looking forward to being with Lord Jagannath outside in the city island. And so much preparation is going on now. Actually, it started yesterday. And there's going to be kirtan this afternoon in the temple, Adivas Kirtan, that is in honor of Lord Jagannath, 6 hours of that. So the happiness is there, but it's spiritual happiness. It's from the soul, not this material things that even the heavenly planets, they have restrictions there. So material transcendentalists have nothing to do with this gross material body, and therefore Krishna allows them to move everywhere. So Narada Muni, he goes each and every place, can go all the way up to the topmost planets and even these planets that are lower in the material world. The Ras Muni, Srila Prabhupada gave him as an example also. The Ras Muni, Srila Prabhupada says he was able to travel the entirety of material space and part of spiritual space within just 1 year. Now, we think a year is long, but you really would take millions and millions and millions of years if you had to go by our mechanical way to anywhere, even towards the end or the one circumference, the perimeter of this material, just this material planet. And to go past it would take even more time. So it's kind of hard to can imagine Duras only being able to do that in 1 year only. Now, at that time, the Sudarshan Chakra for the Lord was actually chasing Duras Muni because Duras Muni had been offensive at the lotus feet of a pure devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Amrish. The whole story behind how that happened. And he threatened Maharaj Ambarish's life. He was actually envious of Maharaj Ambarish because Maharaj Ambarish was such a pure devotee, and from his purity and the way of governing, the Muni got envious of him. And this is what started this. He came to visit, and then finally he just went to, he said, I'm going to go purify myself by bathing in the water and then come back. Ambarish Maharaj was fasting at that time for the welfare of the Praja, the people. And it was time to break his fast. The Muni had not returned. And so Ambarish asked advice about what to do. The fast had to be broken. So they asked him to take a little of Chanamrita water, the water that bathes the deities. So he could break fast that way. The Muni, he has these mystic powers. He has remote viewing. He could tell that Ambarish Maharaj had done this without feeding his guest first. He was guest and he hadn't returned. And this is how he got upset with Ambarish. Took hair from it and dashed it, and a big demon came. Now we learn a lesson from that also, because Ambarish Maharaj, when he saw the demon, he says, if the demon can kill me, that would be Krishna's permission. And if Krishna doesn't want me dead, demon can't do anything to me. And that's when the Sudarshan Chakra from the Lord appeared. And Muni now started running because the Sudarshan Chakra would have killed him. And so he started running. The Sudarshan Chakra from the Lord gave chase, Lord Vishnu's weapon, and burned him quite a bit as he was, because the Sudarshan Chakra is hot. And this is how Duvasmuni traveled to different places seeking help how to get away from this Sudarshan Chakra. We should never be offensive to the devotees. Lord Vishnu, he went to the spiritual world. Lord Vishnu finally told him, I can't do anything to help you. You have to go beg the mercy of the devotee you offended. So he had to do that, go back and beg mercy from Amrish. This is how he got freed from the punishment, the final death that would have occurred to Duvasmuni. So, yes, he traveled the entire material and part of spiritual space because he went to see Lord Vishnu and he had to go to the spiritual world for that. So, we do have the opportunity. We are in one of the three transcendentalists, as the Bhagavad Gita introduction talks about three classes: Jnani or Brahmavadi, Yogi or Paramatmavadi, and Bhakta. All three are transcendentalists. So the Jnani, the impersonalist, Yogi, the meditator, and then the devotee of the Lord. Now, where do these transcendentalists go? One group thinks of the Brahmajyoti, another connecting with the Paramatma, and then the final, to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the best situation to be in. Impersonalist is looking to merge with the Brahmajyoti, the effulgence of the Lord, and they think that's all there is to it. That's that's all in all for them. But the Lord has already said that the effulgence rests on his body. He is the beginning and the end of everything. The yogis, they go through meditation to connect with the Paramatma, but the Paramatma is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So at least so one is the effulgence, the other is an expansion of the Lord in the heart, and then as Srila Prabhupada is directing us as devotees, we concentrate on being a servant of a servant of a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So all three cases, spiritual sky can be entered to by them, but only the devotee who is in personal touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters the Vaikuntha planets or the Goloka Vrindavan planet. So the effulgence is definitely spiritual also. But Goloka Vrindavan, especially now, huge mercy from Srila Prabhupada. We have an opportunity to get to that particular planet where there's such variety of relationship or rasas with the Lord. So Krishna has already said it in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 6. Yam yam api swaram bhavam, kajantyanti kalevaram, tam tam eveti kantiya, sada tat bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his present body, in this next life he will attain to that state without fail. So what's the smart thing to do? Think of Krishna. He says, do that. Become my devotee. Worship me. Offer obeisances to me. In chapter 18, text 65 of Bhagavad Gita, he says that man mana bhava bhat bhakto, madhyaji madhunaskuru, mam evaisyashi satyamte, pratijane priyosmi. You will come to me. Just think about Krishna. You think about Krishna, you serve Krishna's devotees. Even in the material world, we're still in the category of being a transcendentalist because everybody else doesn't do that. As we know, people are thinking in terms of the body. And even the religionists are thinking in terms of going to the heavenly planet. But we just talked about the heavenly planet. It's not the be-all, end-all. Not at all. So in these ashrams, we have different ashrams: Brahmachari ashram, there's Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, and Sannyasi ashram. This is all ashrams. These are all ashrams meant to help us to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists, serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one of the things we need to do is stay away from sense gratification. So brahmacharis, they start under the care of a bona fide spiritual master, and they try to control their mind and abstain from sense gratification. And by doing that, what do they do practically? They hear words concerning Krishna consciousness only. Hearing is a basic principle for understanding. So a pure brahmachari engages in chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. And then he restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, kami type sounds. And his hearing is engaged in sound of the transcendental vibration, the Hare Krishna mantra. Householders who are grihastas, there is some license for sense gratification, but it is with great restraint. Nothing that a grihasta does is that's just free. You could do as you like. There is always restriction. Sex life is according to the regulated principles. Krishna says, I am sex life based on the regulated principles. People do unrestricted sex life, intoxication, meat eating, gambling. Those are the general tendencies of human society. But a regulated householder, not a grihamedi, a grihasta, does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. So the marriage is on the principles of religious life. So for civilized human society, that is the way we should live. And this unattached type of sex life is also, Sri Prabhupada says, a kind of sacrifice, yagya, because it blocks the general tendency towards sense gratification. That's one of the things that this particular planet tends to push so much for advertisement and everything, more the passion they bring into it. And then people just get, bought by those kind of thinking, that kind of activity, and then the emotions are all put into the motor passion. So sometimes even the greatest, some of the people categorized as great sages, they fall to this sense of enjoyment because the mind gets agitated like that. Vishwamitra Muni is a great sage. And he was doing his austerities, but he was misled by the heavenly damsel Menaka in the sex enjoyment. The yogi was endeavoring for sense control with severe types of penances. Still, Menaka was able to change his mind. So it is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. And so we have to be always on guard because Maya will try to change us at any time. Sometimes just a little bit of suggestion here. Oh, no, it's not going to affect me so much. And we get into it. The next thing we know, another one, and another one, another one, then we're slipping. So we have to be always on guard. Always on guard. And we also, if we're humble enough, can approach other devotees and ask them for things that they think we should do in order to improve our spiritual life. But particularly, what gets people is sex life. So Jamuna Charja made a statement about this. Yat abadi nama cheta Krishna pararavinde nava nava rasa damani udyatam rantung asit tad abadi pata nari sangame smaryamani bhavati mukha vikara shishitu nishvatam cha. Since my mind, this is the translation, since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I've been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor, that whenever I think of sex life with a woman, then my face at once turns away from it. and I spit at the thought. So it should only be for having children. And if we are determined to practice that type of restricted sex life, we will in fact realize, one, it is possible to do it, even if we actually physically do, and then later on, there's still some mental residue that's there of thinking about involving in sex life. Even that can go, and it will go over time, being determined to serve with our hearts, to serve devotees with our hearts. Krishna helps us. The extent to which we surrender to this process, then the Lord helps us. So we should be determined and stay and get advice from those who have been in Krishna consciousness longer and more experienced. And in that way, we will also stay in the transcendental arena, for lack of a better word. So Krishna owns everything. And all of these wonderful sages, Vyasadeva, Narada, so much when you read about them, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, and Lord Chaitanya himself, Lord came as a devotee. So much of their activities we can learn from and use that to improve our life and therefore stay at the transcendental level. The body is for us to use because we're in a human type body with the intelligence high enough to understand what is what. It is to be used to help us to grow in Krishna consciousness, not involve ourselves in sense gratification. So with that, we may not be able to travel around, but the last travel should be travel to Guru Vrindavan. That's the best place to go. And Srila Prabhupada has made it possible if we take the process seriously. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. And now the devotees can unmute themselves to want to make a comment or ask a question or share a realization. Hare Krishna. So any questions, so please unmute yourself if you feel inclined to. Okay, so the message is be a transcendentalist. Stay in the spiritual path. Be very strong there. If trials come, please, and the things you don't understand, you need to consult someone who's been involved and is a fixed up devotee so you can get help. Don't try to battle everything by yourself. This is what devotee association is about. You need to be able to review yourself, whatever pain that you've gone through before, try to get it out of your heart, try to get it out of your mind. But it's not easy to do by yourself. Then, of course, you need to get some counseling, some help from a devotee, another devotee. Hare Krishna. Any last thoughts?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please
Hare
accept my
Krishna.
humble obeisances always to
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada.
Step fine. Go to the Prabhupada.
Thank you so much for a strong lecture. Yes, pretty strong, which I guess I needed. Thank you so much.
Krishna's
So,
mercy, Guru's mercy. Okay.
I was thinking, about Srila Prabhupada's book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. So then I was thinking, why did he put easy journey? Because this is what I think, because it's a difficult journey to Goloka. It's more difficult to get there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, very, very important. But that nice realization. The book Easy Journey to Other Planets. Recommend highly that you read that. It's a small book and it wouldn't take you long at all, but it has powerful information in there. As we relate to the Lord, then we have the opportunity to get help to go to different planets. Mechanical means don't work. They will not. They will not work. So, people talk about space doing this and that and that. Let them go on. We spend the time chanting the holy name of the Lord, and we remember the Lord at the time of death. He said, definitely you'll come to me. And that is the spiritual world. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Any other comments? If not, then we thank all of you for coming on today Mm. And the weekend is on us, upon us now. Have a nice weekend wherever you are. And for Harrisburg, of course, we have Rath Yatra. We have Adivas Kirtan this afternoon from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the temple. And then tomorrow, make sure you're there by 11. That's folks who are just simply attending. But if you have service, then please go to City Island even sooner. And it would be a good idea for everybody to go sooner because then there's service available for helping, for the preparation of the wonderful procession that should happen in City Island. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhivya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shilo ki jai. Thank
Hare
you again.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna today. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Go Shri Prabhupada.